All right, so take one. Pilot for, I said I was gonna call it. Yeah. Take one, Nerds with Badges. My name is Sergio Willis, and I am a nerd. And my nerd superpower is writing and filmmaking, because I make short films. This is all about, I just had this idea, since I'm a security guard, I wanted to highlight other security guards that are also nerds. And I think it's a demographic that is not really represented. And I've noticed all the years that I've been doing security that a lot of the people that I've worked with, they're artists. And some of these people, they're doing the acting on the side. When I first got into security, I remember people telling me it's perfect if you're trying to get into Hollywood as a writer or an artist, you can work on your material at night if you get a night shift. So I do like a lot of my writing and work, not as much as I used to. And so I want to give a platform to other security guards that are nerds. This is going to be the first episode of my show, which is going to be called Nerds with Badges. And I have a co-host and a guest. It's William.
Go by William. Willis fine. Here to starting point. Basically, I answered an ad on Craigslist about a podcast. And I figured, why not? Centered around being a nerd. I've never been one to not wave my nerd flag. And so figured what better way to be able to put that out there and I guess nothing else, reach out to the rest of the world and let them know that, there's a lot of us out there and just come from all walks of life. And besides that, huge comic head, movie junkie, music connoisseur. Yeah, haven't quite figured out what my one superpower would be.
Your nerd superpower?
My nerd superpower, yeah.
It would be music, wouldn't it?
To a degree, yeah. I mean, just even the approach I take, it's a pretty nerdy approach. So, I mean, if anybody knows music, genuine music, play an instrument, or just have that ear, folks out there probably know what I'm talking about.
Why do you call yourself a nerd?
Well, for one thing, despite what you may see on screen right now, I've worn glasses all my life, so it somehow goes part and parcel with everything, especially when you're growing up.
Oh, they tape?
No.
Okay.
No.
That's the
I did have a few moments where, a few frames had to get jury rigged or, just figure out how to keep them across the bridge of my nose without falling off and being able to see. But no, there was no stereotypical masking tape, just right there. I did my best to make sure my frames weren't laying crooked across my face.
Did you get picked on when you were, did you go through that whole nerd rite of passage, being picked on and being an outsider?
Of course I did. Just different than I always thought. Let's put it like this. I wasn't getting taken for my lunch money, getting held upside down, given a swirl or anything.
Really?
No.
Oh, that never happened to you?
Never happened. That's no.
Interesting.
It was other things. Say the older kids just call themselves trying to push their way around, and didn't happen often. In fact, a lot of times I found myself around, a lot of the older cats for one reason or another. I attempted to play sports. And, it worked out the way it worked out. I didn't necessarily have any particular big dreams in mind, but just to kind of doing it and knowing what I could do. Just in that sense, that's how I went through my rite of passage.
So, were you really heavy into like video games and in comics and pop culture and all that stuff? I mean, like, did you play role-playing games or?
Of course, yeah.
Dungeons and Dragons?
No, I was more of the sci-fi variety, so Robotech in particular. So
Anime, into anime, manga?
Anime in particular, so the 3 Robotech series, Trans over Z for everybody that's an old head out there.
I vaguely remember.
So
is that a giant robot?
Oh yeah, another giant robot.
Yeah. I vaguely remember.
Let's see, Voltron, the Lions, and the Space Force.
And they have new versions of that now.
Yeah, which is I had a chance to check those out.
The Ultraman is good though, man. You gotta check. The Ultraman is pretty good. I was really surprised. That's cool.
I remember the one they did back in the day. Here's an obscure one. Captain Power. Ring any bells, everybody? I mean, you talk about post-apocalyptic and sci-fi and live action, and it was before, anything of what you're seeing now. And I mean, for as cheesy as some of the, I guess, the effects were, they worked for the time, and on some level they were ahead. It was ahead of its time.
What was that? An animation or that live action?
It's live action.
Was that Japanese or was American show called Captain Power?
Captain Power.
How long was it on TV?
Not long at all.
Like a few episodes?
I want to say they did at least somewhere between 5 and 10.
I hate that. And you remember every single episode, don't you? Even though there were only like a few?
To a degree, yeah.
And probably impossible to find on video right now, isn't it?
Definitely.
I mean, do you have any of it?
I wish I did. I mean, out of everything. But I had,
See,
in my personal collection.
There's a lot of good stuff out there, man. It's coming back. The cool thing is that they're making up a lot of, thankfully, I don't know if it's people our age, because I'm 53. Well, I'm just here,
Let the world keep it.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that that I grew up watching on TV, and that I wish would come back now. Today's special effects, what they could do. I mean, stuff like, I know Highlander's coming back.
Really?
Yeah, Henry Cavill.
Okay. Actually, you know what? That's a pretty good fit. I mean, compared to, and even just checking out old movies on YouTube. Came across a few, I think, with Christopher Lambert in it, and so
it's a lot of fan films, man. There's a lot. It's a big culture.
Anything with Christopher Lambert in it, at this point.
It's a Mortal Kombat. He did Mortal Kombat. Beowulf. He did the Beowulf movie where he was like in the future or something like that. It wasn't the classic Beowulf where he's fighting the monsters and stuff. He was like, I think it was like a modern or futuristic tale of that. There was some supernatural stuff going on, but it was more like post-apocalyptic. Almost cyberpunkish from what I remember. But there's a lot. Highlander has such a big following, man. I mean, it's like a pop culture phenomenon, but I understand why they would want to bring that back. It's just so many what's the word looking for? Inconsistencies within the storyline. I mean, because in the first movie, there's only 2 immortals left, and they have to fight, so there's only one, and they have all the knowledge and power of all the other immortals. And then they did part 2, and then in part 2 they explained they're from a planet. They were sent here. They didn't have a body. I mean,
I remember watching the second one. I know they made a third one. The third one didn't exactly pan out, compared to the previous 2.
It's just pretty much pretended that the second movie never happened. That's the unofficial thing is we're gonna pretend, and they re-released the second movie and they cut out all references to them being from another planet because people hated that, all the fans hated that, and it was just better to make it mysterious and we don't know where they came from, and they tried to explain it as aliens coming here and having bodies, and and the third movie was with Mario Van Peebles,
right? And
he was supposedly at the end of the first movie when all the immortals were supposedly gone. They were in a cage somewhere hidden away, so so at the end of the movie when he gets all the power and everything, you think he's the last one. It wasn't even true. Because, in the TV show, all of a sudden there's like a whole bunch of other, if you watch the TV show, Duncan McCall was always running into other mortals and fighting them on the show.
Well, yeah, that's usually how the story, the general story of it was that, two dudes engaging in combat. They happen to be immortals. The only way one dies is if, you know, one takes the other's head.
But they were all killed off in the movie. Supposedly there were no more left except for him. And then in the TV show, all of a sudden, and he even was in an episode. Christopher Lambert even guest starred in an episode. And yeah. In the very first episode.
See, I mean, you know, just even staying out of my, you know, staying away from the nerdisms, you know, not on purpose, you know, in, you know, missing out on a few things and just even on some levels and trying to.
It's tons. You'd be surprised at how much
caught up.
You'd be surprised at how much Highlander stuff is out there, man. There's comic books, there's anime.
Really?
Yeah, there was a cartoon. There was a cartoon that lasted for, I think it ran for maybe a couple of seasons. But it was very, very family friendly. They could never, you know, so cutting heads off or nothing like that. The animation was just kind of like, there's clothing, there's Highlander clothing. These like cashmere jackets, swords you could buy. The
funky suede with the little poofy shirt.
They always wore like the best. They were rich. And the show won awards because of the costume. It was a period piece. So you'd always flash back into like another time period. And then the show won awards. Oh yeah, because they had the costumes were all authentic, you know, for their time. And they would show the cars, the old cars. And I love this. They show the old cars and how they dressed back then. And, you know, oh yeah. It was, you know, like I was like 350 years old. Do you play video games right now? Like, are you playing anything? Any like video games?
No, not at the moment.
But you hadn't. You said you told me.
I grew up playing video games. I mean, you know, started with Nintendo and graduated to Genesis, then into Super Nintendo.
What happened to your Genesis and your you don't have any of those anymore?
I mean, you know, even for the fun that it was back in the day, you know, looking back at times like. Yeah, I kind of miss it. You know, nothing like playing in Sonic the Hedgehog.
It does all of that. It's got all the consoles up to. I think it does some GameCube. So you got like Super Nintendo, Master System, pretty much anything. Like I said, all the way up to like there's a newer model. This is called a Retroid. It's a emulator for like many different consoles. This thing only costs like $100. I just accidentally turned it on. You can see the name of it. I also bought another one. It's called the Time Machine. It looks like a freaking circle, a round little saucer. It's got like 45 different consoles on it. 10,000 games. It came from France. It took like a month to come. It's got like, you name the console that's up there. All the games. I just was like scrolling and I just was like, wow. Comic book. Talk about your comic book nerdism.
I mean, basically, it's part of where it all started. At this point, you can't call yourself a nerd or something and not have some interest in the collection of comics.
What comic got you started? Do you remember what was the first comic book you ever got? What was your favorite comic? Favorite? Yeah, from back when you was young. A long time ago.
You know, all of them, all the ones that whatever I came across, whatever I ended up picking up. But,
Marvel, DC?
A little bit of both. It was pretty balanced. I mean, as far as DC goes, you know, there's plenty of Superman issues. A few Batman. I picked up a lot more, I guess, as I got older, around about the time where, you know, Fame was introduced and he breaks the Batman.
So, did you like how he looked in the movie? Do you think they did a good job of painting him? I think Tom Hardy did a good job?
Yeah. As far as Bane?
Yeah. You had that really deep voice.
To a degree. I mean, just even the fact that they made him more calculated and, you know, smarter than I guess people would give him credit for.
Yeah, because I don't remember him being smart like that in the comics.
He was.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, to that degree compared to like the only other Batman movie that had Bane in it and just kind of portrayed him as a, you know, meathead more than anything.
I thought he kind of was like, no.
No, he's on par mentally with Batman, which is part of the reason why Bane is able to give Batman / Bruce Wayne so much grief.
I did not know that. I don't know. Then some characters are inconsistent because sometimes Solomon Grundy is just a dummy, and then other times he's not.
Right. I mean,
yes.
Even just learning the story about Grundy. So and even finding it out. I remember watching a clip of the Justice League cartoon. So and even the love of comics and how that they translated over the years to what we're even seeing now. And for it to go from comic books and for them to even start with something like Batman the Animated Series and how that evolved from that to Superman and then Justice League and then that there being that clip. I haven't even seen all the Justice League episodes, but there's one where it talks about the story of Solomon Grundy. And, he's a pretty
supernatural.
He's complex. I mean, most people just see Grundy and
damn zombies. Like
right.
And that's what he is basically. He's a
right.
zombie.
Just to find out that he was a zombie, but there's a little bit more to it than that because on some level, Solomon Grundy still has a soul, or at least he's on a quest for it.
How do you feel about diversity in some of the things that we talk about? Like we talked about comics and anime. Like, how do you feel about diversity and inclusion? It feels cliche to say diversity and inclusion, but that was really one of my things that got me into making films, short film, because I saw the lack of diversity. It just started bothering me. I mean, it got to the point now when I look at a movie, it's like, where the black people? I'm thinking that, like consciously, and
I've never had that kind of an issue with it, even knowing that, it's there.
Yeah. The lack of superheroes that are black. I mean, it is, it's like the elephant in the room. When you see all these superheroes in the big poster, and there'd be like 3 black people in the background running, or one person in front, that's the black person everybody knows about,
I guess the thing with me now, now that we're adults and everything, is the whole idea of, some of these attempts to right a wrong that wasn't necessarily wrong to begin with.
Well, it's a sign of the times when these characters were created, and I think that the people that are making the decisions, maybe they have a disconnect from the community, and the community's changed because the people that read comic books now, they don't all look like the people that used to read comic books 50 years ago when this industry first started, or 100 years ago. There were definitely, there's always been black people, Hispanic people, and Asian people reading comic books, and I think
on some level maybe the powers that be, not necessarily the artists. Had that disconnect. I guess with the people that I looked at, or even some of the artists that that came along and have been around and their work is still present today. I just want to, from Jack Kirby, Jim Lee, Todd McFarlane, and so on down the line. At least, as things progress comic-wise when we were teenagers and coming up, I'm just of the impression that, a lot of those artists really just wanted to tell good stories and really flesh out the characters that they always dreamed of, drawing for and everything. So the whole idea of inclusion for me, it's, again, doing what they're doing now in order to, as a means on some level to, okay, we know this was going on back then and here's our way of saying sorry, or, even some half-hearted attempts to recognize that the demographics are changing, or who's to say they have changed? Maybe just now people are paying more attention to the fact that a lot of black folks and Mexican folks and Asian folks.
Miles Morales. What do you feel? How do you feel about Miles Morales?
I'm fine with Miles Morales. I mean, even with Spider-Man, when they did the 2099 set, Spider-Man was a part of it.
Miguel
O'Hara.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's got a Spanish first name, a Latin first name, and an Irish last name. And yet, somehow, he's still connected to Peter Parker, like, genealogically.
Oh, really? He was genetically related to him?
Genealogically, yeah, he's a distant relative of Peter Parker.
I did not know that.
Or at least in some translations of it, yeah, he's descendant of. And so,
what a coincidence that he ended up getting powers like Spider-Man, right? Well, almost like Otto Octavius getting 8 arms. They kind of make fun of that in the movie. What are the odds of someone named Otto Octavius getting 8 arms? He just happened to get those spider powers. How do you feel about? I think we talked about Naomi. How do you feel about Naomi?
I've never had a chance to really see what she can do, so I wouldn't know the first thing
almost
about
like Captain Marvel. Almost like, well, the Monica Rambeau version of Captain Marvel. Powers are very similar.
Now, and then there's been so many, Captain Marvels.
Well, Monica Rambeau, you know what her power set was, right? She just become any kind of energy. She could turn in like freaking radiation flying around or laser. But it looked like her, she'd be standing there looking like a hologram. She's made out of like energy.
Okay.
Yeah, she could become any energy, any form of energy.
I mean, that to my knowledge, that was just part of the basic, Captain Marvel lore. And I guess for those that don't know, there are these most people don't. Yeah, Marvel is the one that for the alien life force, wasn't it?
No, he was a guy who had Kree. He was a Kree warrior, and he was sent here to take over the Earth, and then he ended up. I think he fell in love with a person or something, and he changed his mind. That happens.
And then there's so many, I guess, stories.
Thank you.
Behind and what they choose to show in regard, again, does anybody ever mention Carol Danvers?
Oh yeah, she's Captain Marvel now. She's Captain Marvel now. She's got a new movie coming out called The Marvels.
But most people don't know that Captain Marvel, the original Carol Danvers, or at least the one that I was introduced to initially and even barely had any exposure to, like very little, but knowing that she was there before, I guess, everything that they're putting out now. Like she was a black woman.
Carol Danvers, a black woman?
I believe so.
No, Carol Danvers has always been a white lady. Monica Rambeau was a black woman who got the powers from an explosion. And she was introduced in Spider-Man and the original Captain Marvel was a guy, he died of cancer. He gave Carol Danvers, she got her powers in some explosion. He gave her, she took the name of Captain Marvel. And then Captain Marvel's son came back from the dead and was Marvel. Then he was Captain Marvel briefly, and then Monica Rambeau, and then you had the Shazam Captain Marvel in the DC comics. It's just like a whole other conversation.
Right. The whole DC one is not. That's.
And he's just Shazam now. They no longer have. They lost the legal right to call him Captain Marvel, so he's just Shazam. That's why they stopped calling him Captain Marvel. DC sued the comics company that created Captain Marvel because it was too similar to Superman. But it's funny because now they own him. They own Captain Marvel, but he's Shazam. The new movies, I think the new movie's coming out sometime this year.
I mean, they've been working on the second one for quite some time.
The trailer looks pretty cool though, and then they're doing the Black Adam movie. I think that got pushed back to next year. I think Black Adam got a few of the DC movies got pushed back. I think the only thing that's coming out this year is going to be the movie with the animals, the League of Super Pets. I'm serious.
Oh yeah.
That's coming out with The Rock and Kevin Hart doing voices. And another one, I don't know if it's Shazam. It might be Aquaman, but I know that a few of the big DC projects got pushed back. And I guess we should actually switch to the solo thing. I don't know, maybe we got to like a good point. I did want to ask you like about yesterday, but I guess I can ask you that like in solo. So I don't know if you ever did you say what your nerd superpower was? Did you say?
No, I haven't.
Because that's when I say nerd superpower, I mean like something like nerds are known to be like super like really smart and goofy and like into like the stereotype. I guess into comics. Probably more so in the comics, fantasy. Maybe good at fixing things, good with computers.
I mean, my nerd superpower is pretty much well-rounded.
I think it's the comics because you love the comics and you know the lore, to some degree. I mean, that's you know the lore. I mean, what's Superman's real name?
Kal-El.
The average person don't know that. Well, they might now know it because Superman's got really popular. What's Green Lantern's real name? The Black guy.
John. I know his first name is John. John Smith.
No, Stewart. What's Spawn's real name?
Al Simmons.
See? Now, I can probably count on one hand how many people I know that actually know that are not nerds. I mean, even Spawn is kind of like, let me try another. What was the name of the Binding woman? What was her name?
Oh, no. Let's go back too far.
What's the $6 million man's name? What's the name of the wrestler?
Yeah.
I'm sure it came out okay. Better for his freaking $600 iPad. All right, so how many comic books did you buy yesterday? You said you spent.
I got it like 12.
That looks like more than 12 comic books.
$12
Oh,
of comics. So they were 3 for $1.
Oh, they were 3 for $1?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what it was.
Let me see what you got there.
Okay, so we're just gonna.
Yeah, just lay them out.
There's Checkmate for. In fact, this is one of the ones that I was really big on when I coming up and everything, and I always it just hit my head recently. Wonder if they're doing anything with it, and just came across a more recent version of it. So clandestine stuff, government bureaucracy. Amanda Waller.
Who's getting her own?
It being DC. No,
she's getting her own series. They're doing like I think it's gonna be. I don't know if it's gonna be a live. I think it's gonna be a live action show with her on HBO Max.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
And so next I got 17, 18, 19. So most of these are from Image Comics, and I had a chance to, because they were 3 for $1, and in digging through a shit ton of Image Comics, and just to even fill in the gaps of, there's Wildcats. So, if you know anything about Image Comics, they were one of the first groups.
Yeah, I used to read Wildcats and was it Strike Force? What was it?
Cyber Force.
Yeah.
And Strike Force, because one of the members of Cyber Force actually had his own freelance group. And so, in connection with that, one of the characters, or one of the members of Wildcats,
Probably the most popular character, right? Him and the girl could run fast too. And then there was another one named.
that's Cyber Force. Yeah, and even just the story, like they all worked to. Well, no, Velocity wasn't there. You said the one that runs fast. That's Velocity.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's Cyber Force. But Warblade, Velocity, and a few others, they came out of the same group, which is the group that's now Cyber Force as well.
There was another team too. I can't remember the name. It was another team.
Stormwatch.
Yeah. There was a black guy with a force field power or something, right?
Sentinel.
Was it?
Yeah.
Was that his name?
Yeah.
I remember.
And then the mini series, I came across this back in the day. Not exactly sure what it was, but again,
I vaguely remember him having like a symbiotic kind of thing going on, almost like a Spawn kind of thing. I think it's kind of like some kind of I don't know if it was a suit that gave him his powers or something. It's very vague in my memory.
and then mentioned.
Then there was a guy that was like the mob guy who had like the darkness. I remember the darkness, and then there was a pit. It was weird. It was a weird comedy. Remember
Yeah, Pit. Yeah.
And Witchblade.
Yes, and
another popular
Witchblade.
one. And these are all books that you got from Comic Book Day yesterday.
Yeah, from the free comic book day.
Well, they weren't free though because you bought them.
Yeah, they were offering free comic books, but I instead opted
To pay. I mean, that's good. I mean, I bought one. I gave them $10, for this Death of the Justice League. I mean, I don't miss the advertisements, man. Let me tell you, you get advertisements in the physical books, but when you buy the digital ones, there's no advertisements.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds good.
It's nice.
Even in flipping through, some of the ones that I picked up yesterday, it felt good to see some of the ads.
Really?
Yeah, ads for certain video games. In fact, I forget.
Brings back memories.
There was this one that they have in one of these. In fact, Booger Man.
That game on the Genesis? Yeah, that was a weird one. Pick and flick adventure.
What the
hell? Booger Man.
And so, and then picked up some more Cyber Force. Interestingly enough, even Wildcats and Cyber Force were, they brought them back to some degree.
They had a cartoon, didn't they? Didn't they have a cartoon? Wildcats had a cartoon for a minute, right?
Yeah, in fact, Wildcats and Spawn were the only ones, personally, I like Spawn better.
I'm surprised that they haven't done like live action adaptations of Wildcats or any of these other characters. I mean,
I'm actually shocked either, and you know what? I hope it stays that way.
Because they might butcher it.
Yeah, in fact, to some
unless
degree,
the writers are involved, unless the original creators or writers are involved.
In fact, some of what it is that they even, Image Comics is still around, but not as, we knew it coming up.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening is that some of the characters were bought out by someone else.
Because Angela's Marvel, right? Angela's now Marvel. Angela's a Marvel character now.
If you know, you know. Some, certain ones went to DC, and I'll just say that. But you would have to know
the authorities,
or you would even have to just see it for yourself, because I didn't believe it at first. And to see what happened, because I haven't seen the documentary yet, but I know Image kind of split itself up within the company. Certain artists were with, let's call it a subdivision, and then another set of artists worked with the other subdivision. And I think DC definitely bought out one of them. But what that did was, as far as the storylines that were developed, even with all these comics, if you were to pick up any of the original comics, like the original superhero comics from Image, they all tie in with each other. It's its own universe. And even some of the more, like these, Team 7. In fact,
isn't that the guy who is like I can't? Is his name Bloodshot or something like that, or Blood?
No, that's Deathblood.
Yeah. He was a Jim Lee creation, right? He's like a super soldier, basically.
Yeah,
right?
He
is the super soldier, because I think some of the other characters got their powers from him, from his DNA or something.
No, actually, you know what? I don't know how deep Deathblow's story goes. I even have the original #1 when he came out, and it was all black, and I never really got a chance to get into it. I guess because at the time Image was going through everything, and a lot of the issues, they were either pushed back or delayed. And even some of the artists, I don't even have my favorite Image group here at the moment. But that particular group was delayed for so long.
What group was that?
Wetworks.
You know, I vaguely remember that. Was it Jackson Goose drawing that or something, or did he create it?
It was Wiles Bertassia.
Okay, Jackson Goose. Yeah, I know it was because he used to draw X-Men. I remember him drawing X-Men and what did I get Jackson? Good grief. I remember Deathblow being like a character that had like a backstory with a lot of these other characters.
Exactly.
Like, he was almost like the Wolverine of their universe because he was the first. I guess he was a metahuman in their.
No, however, Deathblow was one of the ones that got bought out by someone else, and even how they've taken some of that story that Image created in their universe. I'm even tempted to say they retconned whatever, or it did. I wouldn't even say retcon. It seemed like they were trying to start over again, but at the same time trying to pick up where they left off.
So it was a soft reboot.
It didn't. I don't know. It just didn't sit right with me. Period. Just because of what I know of Team 7 and who all is involved and how many of those team members have everything to do with a lot of the other Image titles that were out at the time. So, you know, and even discovering this on the fly and picking up, they're like, okay, you know, like the next one, you have Stormwatch. So now I've had number 0. Some of these, in fact, the Kendrick ones, some of the Kendrick ones I picked up, a couple of the Team 7s and then Stormwatch.
You don't have any of the hologram or foil covers that they used to do. They used to do all these like big.
Oh, trust me. Some of those I got those stashed away. In fact, there was one where I guess it was, you know, a crossover series of all the characters in the Imageverse, but the corresponding issues for each comic book, they had limited edition covers where if you put them all together, it makes a bigger picture and you see everything.
Yeah, I remember they used to do covers like that, and some of them were kind of hard to find, or they were expensive as hell.
Some of them were damn hard to find.
And then when you did find it, was expensive.
One of them was Team 7. I know one of them was Wildcats as well. I believe one of them was Stormwatch. So, and then the funny thing about the Team 7 one, that was actually like issue number 1. And I remember, you know, it just being right there and hearing about the whole thing that they were doing with the multiple covers. And I was like, ooh. They
went crazy with that in the 90s. They went too far with it. It just got on my
There was another cover of a group called Brigade.
I vaguely remember them.
They had an initial run, and then they brought them back. And then because the leader of that group and the leader of another group, not only are they brothers, but they're at odds with each other. And they were both part of the same project, which ended up essentially bringing them back from the dead. And that next run of Brigade, you see that play out in one of the covers. You see the face of one of the heroes, or one of the Brigade members. And the way his suit is set up, it's supposed to be like shiny and silvery. And they actually made the cover, I believe it was called Mirror Sight. So where it was, they rendered the image, it was 3D, so when you ran your fingers across it, you can feel the texture on the cover.
Yeah, I remember
and not only that, it was a reflective enough surface. It wasn't quite a mirror, but you know, you could still kind of see yourself in it as well. And that was pretty limited from what I understand.
They don't do stuff like that anymore.
They just don't.
They don't really do that anymore. I mean, I guess if it's expensive for one thing, I'm sure it would really cost to make books like that. I mean,
I wonder. I mean, I always wondered about that too, in regards, not necessarily the cost, but you know, like how many of those, how limited, you know, of an edition are they? Because if I was to take them to a local comic shop, I mean, you know, who's to say what it'd be appraised at?
Collectors will. I mean, I don't know. The comic book shops might not would give you, but I mean,
Right, they're
collectors-
probably trying, you know, sell you a little short to begin with.
Yeah, you definitely want to go for collectors. Now, what is the most valuable comic that you have in your collection right now?
I have a few, but I want to say at least on top, a couple of the X-Men series, number of the Jim Lee run. So number 25, issue number 25. Those that don't know, that was when Wolverine and Magneto. You just have to see it for yourself. If you don't know.
Is that the adamantium thing when he ripped the adamantium out of his body?
Mm-hmm.
Now, how many issues did Jim Lee do?
He actually, you know what? He might have done the first. I know he did the Omega Red saga. They did everything else after that. I think he had a good run. I mean, up somewhere up until the 20s or whatnot. I want to say Claremont. No, Claremont was doing the Uncanny X-Men.
Writing them, yeah.
He was writing them.
Yeah, Claremont is the writer, not the
Claremont's
artist.
the writer, okay.
Yeah, he wrote all those big stories that everybody loves with the X-Men back in the 80s and the 90s.
And because Jim was doing the Uncanny X-Men too. And during that time, during the Uncanny X-Men saga, Jean Grey is thought to be dead.
Again?
Yeah, they get into it with the Sentinels and the Hellfire Club at the same time. It's also the introduction of Bishop, or that's where, you know, as the story plays out, Bishop is introduced. A couple of the limited edition covers, I imagine, from Image, especially since a lot of them are out of stock. And then I guess maybe a couple of the collections. The first 4 of Wildcats. There was a Spider-Man that McFarlane did with X-Force.
Really?
Yeah. They were taking on Juggernaut. And they did it so cool. Instead of all the panels being rendered vertically, you would open it up, but you would read it. And you would follow everything top to bottom, but across the edges of the pages.
So, what is your favorite comic book story?
I got a couple, actually. There's so many, you know, and I'm a traditionalist in the sense that, you know, most of the stories, the origin stories, I mean, for anybody that decides they want to try and do something, just keep it as basic as possible. Just stick to the original concept, and I guess, you know, allow it to grow on itself, as opposed to, you know, trying to make such drastic changes. I mean, even
X-Men comes to my mind because they've changed so much now.
Right, exactly. There's so many things that could have been done right the first time and still kind of. But we all know, at least at this point, the 90s cartoon was the best one.
Well, they're bringing it back on Disney Plus.
I heard.
Yeah,
X-Men 97.
Yeah, they're doing it. I don't know when it's supposed to come on, but I know it's been in production.
I actually like what they did too, cinematic-wise, with Superman. At least with the Man of Steel.
You talking about Henry Cavill?
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was. I just didn't like him breaking the guy's neck. I didn't understand why he couldn't have just knocked him out or something. I don't know, whatever.
No, I think that, I mean, how they tried to write that into, I documented Snyder and the writing team for it. There was, you know, and I guess taking a different approach to, say, the Christopher Reeves version I forget the one other dude. Superman Returns, Brandon somebody.
Yeah, Brandon Ruth.
Okay.
Yeah, he's on Legends of Tomorrow. He's been on that show for like forever.
So, you know, and even, you know, Superman Returns was pretty decent.
Yeah,
for what it was.
It needed more action, I
right,
think.
and to kind of figure out the twist of it all and I guess how that played out, like, okay, I like what you did there. Then for Snyder to kind of go back to the original story, you know, honestly, I would have loved to have seen Kevin Costner live.
Yeah, I was like,
wanted
really?
to see Kevin Costner live. Like, please, just let the man live.
Yeah, he just stood there and just like, yeah, that's another issue to think that I had with that movie.
I know Mr. Kent had a heart attack back in the day, in the old Christopher Reeve one. Even watching that, it kind of fucked my head up. He's sitting there trying to raise his, knowing he's not gonna win, but then all of a sudden he starts grabbing his arms.
What did you think of Batman versus Superman? The warehouse scene, man, it's just
they could have done better, but they did all right.
That warehouse scene is just epic.
Well, with the introduction of the Batman.
No, when he beats up those guys and saves Martha Kent.
Oh, at the end.
Yeah, when he beats those guys up, I mean, that is like an epic Batman. I mean, he wasn't pulling his punches because people are like flying through walls and everything.
Right, and I mean, people even, I thought Ben Affleck was a great choice.
Yeah, I liked him.
And even his idea for what could have been the latest Batman, I was all for it. And, you know, the fact that they even teased it, or, you know, at the end credits of Justice League. So, you're here with the creator, the mastermind behind it all. Sergio.
Yeah,
The tables are turned, so.
That guy.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. This is Nerds with Badges.
Episode 1, pilot episode. I'm just having some coffee, trying to freeze from this air conditioner, drinking out of my Black Panther, which I scorched in my microwave a few months ago. I was cooking something, I didn't realize that it was in the corner in the back, and I noticed it, and I started hearing something cracking, and then I started smelling something burn. Like, hey, that's not right. What do you want to ask me?
How did you come about being a nerd? What makes you a nerd?
Well, I love comic books. I think I live comic books. I think comic books actually raised me in a way. It instilled in me morality and values and all that. I love video games. I love cartoons. I did do the stereotypical glasses with the tape, and then I did get picked on a lot when I was a youngin' because I was really into this stuff. I was really off into my own world. I love reading comic books so much that I started drawing my own. So it really became a part of, you know, like my DNA. Comic books, video games. I mean, I go far back to when I was in 5th grade and I used to cut classes. I used to hate going to school because I used to get picked on all the time. So I would go to the arcades or the little newsstands and I would buy these, like, I don't know if you remember, because you're old enough, you should remember these little, they used to call them digests. They were like little, like Richie Rich.
Right.
You remember the Richie Rich and the Archie digest?
I remember seeing those at times. That I'd seen the regular size comics more than anything, but I think I've seen some of the smaller ones, or just randomly.
Yeah, I think they were like $1 or $1.50 or something like that. And they were like 100 pages, and they were like,
right.
And then they had like the little I don't know if you remember Casper and Richie Rich,
mm-hmm.
and Sad Sack.
Sad Sack doesn't ring any bells.
Hot Stuff. The Devil was like a little red devil, and sometimes they would do crossovers with Casper and Wendy the Witch and Hot Stuff would team up, and Richie Rich. They would team up sometimes.
No, I don't. I mean, I know I have a few Richie Rich and Alf and a few others hanging around, but I don't remember that one.
You actually have the Alf books, huh?
Yeah, I got a couple of them.
And video games has always been a big part of my nerdism. But I think the comic books is probably the biggest part of it. I don't know. I mean, I guess because I've been doing it, I was in the comics longer. Long story short.
It's about time, around 10 minutes.
All right, 10 minutes? All right. I think comic books, I've been in the comic books longer. I mean, I remember someone drawing a comic book picture of Porky the Pig or something when I was a kid. And then, then there's Godzilla. I mean, I'm obsessed with Godzilla. I don't really know why exactly. Probably, I remember sneaking out when I was a kid and watching Godzilla movies late at night. I have fond memories of watching Godzilla vs. Megalon at like maybe 12 o'clock in the morning when I think I was supposed to be in bed for school. And what else? I have a lot of fond memories of video games as far as like my nerdism goes. I mean, like, I don't know, what was the first video game you ever? What was the first console you ever owned?
First console I had was a Nintendo.
A regular Nintendo?
Yeah, the regular Nintendo.
Do you remember ColecoVision?
Yeah, I never played it.
You never played a ColecoVision?
No, not really.
They were actually Nintendo's competition.
Right.
They were actually Nintendo's competition for. Oh, actually, wait a minute. Was the Nintendo even out when the ColecoVision came out? I'm trying to think.
Not initially, no.
I think Atari was out around that time.
Atari was out.
With the red thing and
the one stick
one button,
with the
right?
red button, the one button. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean I think it's all a part of the culture. I mean, I think if you're a nerd, it's the comic books and the video games, the cartoons, anime, the manga, Pokemon. I think about Pokemon. I think of cosplay. Cosplay, which is exploded.
Right, it's big these days.
Yeah, I mean, you got people making costumes that look better than the stuff that you see in the movies and the TV shows. I mean, really, the craftsmanship. I mean, so all of this was like a part of like my upbringing, and now, eventually I got to the point where I started making my own comic books. I started writing my own stories, and that led to me writing scripts because of diversity. The lack of diversity, it started bothering me, and I wanted to do something about it. I just got tired of seeing, I just got tired of, like, why aren't there more black superheroes? It was something that bothered me. So I wanted to do something about that. So I started creating a web series. So I'm like right there in the middle, man, with all the nerd stuff. I mean, I want to do full-length films at some point in time. I mean, it's a more expensive endeavor, of course. I'm working on a comic book right now, and I'll talk more about that later. The comic book is called Satchwatch and the Mythology Sisterhood. Satchwatch. I'm obsessed with Satchwatch too. I don't know exactly why. I mean, I remember the earliest memory I have of Satchwatch is having the shit scared out of me when I was a kid. I think my father took me to this movie, and all I remember they were in a cabin, and Bigfoot's hand came through the damn window and was grabbing somebody or something, and I just remember being freaked out. But just the whole cryptozoology is very fascinating. I think that's very fascinating. That's the study of, like Bigfoot, Mothman,
mysterious animals,
with just weird stuff, the chupacabra,
right?
All that stuff. But I guess Mary, the Weeping Mary or something, the lady that you see her at when you
Bloody Mary.
Yeah. You don't stop and pick her up because you pick her up and she kills you or something.
Oh,
like they
wow.
did an episode of Supernatural where they actually had to go in and like
really
kill her. You didn't watch Supernatural?
No.
Oh my God, man.
No.
So I wanted my whole idea for this series of videos is I'm a security guard just like you are, and I'm a nerd. I'm a big nerd, and I've got all this. I'm like probably the king, the mayor of a city called Nerdism. So I've got all this stuff going on. I know there are other security guards out there that are also interested in this stuff, that are into comics and all this, and I want to like tap into that community and maybe might be a good idea to have different guests, you know, that are, you know, the security guards that are nerds, cops maybe, police officers, you know, I guess military counts as nerds with badges. Is that? I mean, I guess it does. Kind of, because they have badges, right?
Technically, they would be stripes or ribbons, but yeah, they have badges. Yeah, they would have badges. Not necessarily something that, you know, where they're deputized. But yeah, they would definitely have badges.
So anyway, this is actually going to be first episode, pilot episode for what I want to build upon with this series, and just have us nerding out, you know, security guards, nerds with badges, and I want to do this maybe once a month. So I just want to do this one episode to see how it feels when I have to go in and edit everything together. I'm sure that's going to be really exciting. I'm being sarcastic. I don't really know much about editing, but I'm learning. It's a work in progress. So welcome to the first episode of Nerds with Badges. We just talked a little bit about each other and the stuff that we're interested in. And when I do my next episode, I'll stick to the format, but I have some ideas. But this is just me laying the groundwork for what I want to do with the future of this particular concept. And that's it for now.
Anything else you want to tell the world during the pilot episode?
I don't know. What did I leave out? Happy post comic book day. Happy Mother's Day. I don't know.
It's a great way to put a timestamp on it.
We're downtown LA right now, and this it's a lot of homeless people down here right now. I mean, it's really, downtown LA is it's changed a lot. So I'm actually curious about what the rent is around in this area, being quite candid. I mean, might be worth looking into. Some areas are better than others. I'll just leave it at that. I mean, there's a big problem with the homeless. I'll discuss all that because there's a lot of stuff that I want to talk about that goes on within the community, within my community. We're in a pandemic right now, and it's kind of going back and forth. And then you got a homeless problem going on, and then we got this thing with Russia and Ukraine that's happening. So it's just a lot of stuff that's going on. We're just like nerds with badges stuck in the middle. So I'll go more into detail on that stuff later. But right now, I just want to stick with the basics, which is the comics, the games, and a lot of other interesting stuff. Movies, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, X-Men. It's a lot of stuff. We'll get to that in the future. And just thank you for your time and for checking out my video. And hopefully you'll stick around for the rest of our journey.
Thank you kindly.